The line between good and evil is always extremely blurry. This concept perfectly matches Tsun's tumultuous life. From being a brilliant investigator dedicated to upholding justice and exposing crime, cruel fate has thrust him into becoming the mastermind behind high-stakes scams. What cruel event forced that kind father to abandon his faith? Where did Tsun's decision to embark on a dark and sinful journey originate? He was once an excellent appraiser at a prestigious insurance corporation. Alongside his successful career, he was also the father of a very obedient young son, Sankyu. Tragically, disaster struck when the poor child contracted a strange and incurable disease. This terrible illness even baffled the best doctors. Medical experts concluded that Sankyu only had a maximum of 3 short months to live. Amidst his overwhelming grief, Tsun tearfully pleaded with the doctor to save his child's life by any means necessary. Moved by the fatherly love, the doctor revealed the Asana remedy, the only hope of saving Sank's life. However, this medical preparation was still subject to extremely strict censorship. Immediately afterward, he gave Tsun a small card. The father was guided to the place written on the piece of paper, hoping that the person there would help him snatch his son back from the clutches of death. Like a drowning man finding a life raft, he immediately followed the location to the edge of a road. But when he arrived at the coordinates, he saw no medical center at all. All he saw was a restaurant with the same name. Despite his heart filled with countless doubts about his blood relationship, the father bravely went inside to grasp the last glimmer of hope. The owner, upon seeing him, mistook him for a customer and quickly came out to greet him and ask what he wanted to eat. The young man maintained a serious expression and expressed his wish to meet the head of the establishment. Upon hearing this strange request, the woman immediately turned away and coldly refused outright. Undeterred, T-Dun then presented a small piece of paper, and at the same time asserted that he had an acquaintance who could guide him. At this point, the proprietress's attitude immediately changed as she proactively led him into a secluded room next door. Suppressing his suspicion, he continued inside, walking along the long, narrow corridor to the end. He himself was extremely surprised to realize that behind the ordinary restaurant was hidden a clandestine medical facility. At that location, a doctor named Bitch Sun Yu was administering an 4-drip to a young child. Taking advantage of the moment Ban Yu stepped outside, Sun quickly accessed the medical records of the child to check them. To his surprise, he learned that this child was also suffering from the same terrible disease as his son, Skyu. The father was about to take the nutritional box placed on the table when suddenly B-San Yu returned. The other party immediately explained clearly the reason for his appearance in this room. However, he not only received no pity but was also mercilessly sent out by B-San Yu. The doctor even threatened to forbid him from ever returning to this secret area again. The young man, Jun, was now in a completely desperate situation. He didn't hesitate to cast aside his honor and humbly kneel on the ground. The unfortunate father earnestly begged the mysterious doctor to show mercy and heal his poor son. Seeing the sincerity and the extreme pain surrounding Jun, Soma finally felt pity and changed his mind, agreeing to let him stay. Next, the two of them went to a roadside restaurant to talk. Soma expressed that the child who appeared in the hospital room earlier was his own gut-wrenching catch-up. The doctor suddenly asked whether Taejun would willingly sacrifice his life for his parents, or heartlessly take the breath of a fellow human being to protect his child. Responding to that question with utmost conviction, Tun affirmed that he would absolutely never harm innocent people. However, he asserted that he was willing to sacrifice his life for his child. The doctor, hearing the other party refuse to harm anyone, subtly inquired whether he could steal. The father, hearing this, stood up to take his leave, thinking he had come to the wrong place. However, Soma calmly told him that he was the one who had invented the life-saving medicine. Seeing a glimmer of hope for his son's recovery, T-Jun immediately returned to his original position. The other party further explained that this medical product originally belonged to him. However, 3 years ago, he was deceived and robbed of his work by a malicious person under the pretext of cooperation. While handing over the test samples to Tun, this man made an exchange proposal. Soma wanted him to sneak into the future microbiology center to retrieve the formula for his drug. For the survival of his only child, Tun reluctantly agreed to participate in this risky mission. Immediately afterward, he took the sample he had obtained to Sankyu's doctor for testing. Fortunately, the child's body responded very well to this new drug. However, the doctor noted that the child needed a higher dose for complete treatment and could not be cured with a small dose. The next morning, Jun resolutely went to work to submit his resignation letter. He wanted to focus entirely on the journey to find a way to save his child's life. Next, the father sought out a notorious theft organization that he had previously investigated. His purpose was to negotiate and seek help from these thieves. At that very moment, Ui Zheng was desperately trying to escape Nabi's relentless pursuit. It turned out that Nabi was also a key member of that infamous group, but the two sides were in serious conflict. Behind Nabi, after a series of breathtaking chases, she finally caught up with Tun's vehicle. Seeing the girl approaching, Tun remained completely calm and politely invited her into the car to talk. All three characters then moved to a secluded cafe to negotiate face-to-face. The father didn't use flowery language but directly stated his purpose. He wanted to hire them to steal an extremely valuable item. Upon hearing the offer, the man was utterly astonished that a law enforcement officer specializing in catching criminals was now asking for help from thieves. To convince the two men, Tun asserted that he would pay them twice the usual fee. And so, an unusual negotiation between law enforcement and thieves officially began. All three characters quickly moved to a secluded location to discuss the detailed plan of action. With his extensive investigative experience, Tun easily pinpointed the exact location where the item was hidden. He proactively provided all the confidential data to Nabi and Ui for coordinated action. The time to implement the plan has arrived. Tun takes on the responsibility of observing from the outside to prevent any incidents. Ui Dung is in charge of directly interfering with the comprehensive security network of the Microbiology Center. Meanwhile, Nabi will be in charge of infiltrating deep inside to find a way to steal the important item. Thanks to the extremely strong support from Tun and Ui Zheng, Nabi easily entered the building structure. Suddenly, the facility's alarm system blared loudly, startling all the members. The truth is that an anonymous informant had secretly passed on the warning to Rio beforehand. This person was the head of the security department at the research building. Upon receiving the confidential information about the illegal intrusion, Rio immediately ordered a full mobilization of the security forces. Hearing the alarm sirens blaring, Nabi and Ui Zheng were forced to speed up. They successfully seized the requested item and quickly moved to the rooftop to escape. However, both were horrified to realize that the cables supporting their descent to the ground had been sabotaged by someone. At this moment, Soma proactively contacted Tun in an extremely cold tone. He declared that all the documents Tun brought back were blank and blamed him for his betrayal. Tun was extremely confused at this time because he had no idea of the terrible events that had just occurred. Nevertheless, he was determined to rescue his two companions first before dealing with the remaining issues. Tun immediately drove his car straight into the lockdown area, disregarding all the sturdy security barriers ahead. However, his vehicle was aggressively blocked by the car driven by Rio. The two of them then created an extremely dramatic and breathtaking car chase. Right in the parking garage area, Rario's car was finally subdued and stopped. Tun immediately opened the door and ran at full speed towards Nabi and Ui Zheng's location. Just when it seemed he could rescue them both from danger, the elevator carrying them suddenly exploded violently. As a result of this devastating incident, Tun was apprehended on the spot by security forces. The other two companions are still missing and their fate remains unknown after the horrific explosion. The old police officer looked at the handcuffed Tun with a stunned expression, unable to believe what he was seeing. He escorted him to the police car and questioned him thoroughly about the entire sequence of events. At this moment, Tun overheard a message coming from the police radio system. The rescue team reported that they found absolutely nothing in the burnt-out elevator cabin. This valuable information made him breathe a sigh of relief, as he was certain that Nabi and Ui Zheng were still alive. After being released on bail, Chun took the handcuffs and went to a large theater to meet Sukyung. Sukyung was concentrating on her performance when she was startled to see a stranger behind her. She instinctively swung her arm and punched Chun hard in a painful blow. After regaining her composure and realizing it was Taezan, she gave him another punch. It seemed there were deep-seated personal grudges between them in the past. Taezan didn't care about his injuries and seriously expressed that he desperately needed her help. The next morning, Sukyung followed Tun's instructions to find a strange girl. It turned out that she was the thief Nabi that Tun had mentioned earlier. Sukyung announced that Tun had sent him to find her and coordinate with Ui Zheng. At this moment, Ui Zheng happened to be passing through that intersection. The guy heard the two women mentioning his name and, out of curiosity, approached them. And so the three of them went together to the meeting point with Tun to discuss things. It turned out that Nabi and Ui Zheng were able to escape that critical moment thanks to luck. Both of them managed to climb onto the elevator cabin roof in time to save their lives and avoid being discovered. The four of them sat down together to analyze the whole situation and came to a unanimous conclusion. Tsun was definitely tricked and deceived by the Dr. Soma from the very beginning. Nabi returned to the Eastern Hospital to check the truth of the situation to verify it. As a result, that secret medical facility completely vanished without a trace. Chun felt extremely bitter and indignant at being cruelly exploited. He decided to immediately devise a plan to exact revenge on those scoundrels. In fact, that guy wasn't a real doctor at all, but the owner of a large pharmaceutical company called Songcan. However, he himself was merely a loyal henchman for some mysterious, hidden force. Chun proactively discussed a specific counterattack plan with Ui Zheng and Nabi to coordinate. He asked Ui Zheng to quickly spread false information on dark websites about the stolen data. The announcement claimed that they were in possession of all confidential documents from the Institute of Microbiology. At the same time, he also made Milone believe that they were willing to sell it to anyone who offered a sufficiently high price. Immediately afterwards, Ui Zheng and Nabi disguised themselves and went directly to Soma's company headquarters. While Ui Zheng was in charge of attracting the attention of the security forces outside, he also secretly moved the data transmission direction of the surveillance camera system to the main lobby area. Nabi took advantage of that security gap to immediately sneak into Soma's private office. She quickly planted secret recording devices in hidden locations in the space. After completing the operation, the whole group gathered again at Sukian's theater area to monitor. Through the received signals, they uncovered Soma's true scheme. He had acquired a small pharmaceutical business for the purpose of legally commercializing the product. Then, through that shell company, he would easily launder all the ill-gotten gains. While the team was concentrating on devising a plan of action, Sukyung suddenly called out in a trembling voice. She showed him images extracted from the surveillance camera network at the hospital where his son was being treated. Witnessing Sankyu being hurriedly rushed into the emergency room by the medical team, Tun's heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone in utter terror and panic. He immediately rushed outside, ignoring all the warnings and worried glances from his teammates. Tun secretly moved to the hospital and only dared to stand at a distance to observe his child through the glass partition. There seemed to be a special spiritual connection, so Sankyu immediately noticed his father standing motionless. Seeing his father's distraught and anxious face, the obedient child signaled that he would keep it a secret. The boy cried, his eyes welling up as he looked at his father, making the man's heart ache even more with overwhelming sorrow. Just as his emotions were in turmoil, he was suddenly pulled violently into a dark corner by a strong arm. It turned out that the person who had just appeared was Rio, the former security captain with whom he had had a fierce confrontation before. After the shocking break-in, Rario was not only dismissed and stripped of his power but also burdened with a huge debt. Carrying a deep-seated hatred, the former captain relentlessly hunted Tun to settle the score. Facing this furious rage, Tun remained calm and engaged in direct dialogue. He explained that he himself was also a victim of being cruelly deceived by others. And Roy Rio is actually in the same ironic situation due to a director's hand behind the scenes. Seizing the opportune moment, Tsun proactively offered Rio the chance to join his revenge squad. The purpose was for both sides to cooperate in order to avenge themselves and seek justice. After carefully considering the pros and cons, Rario finally nodded in agreement to cooperate. Immediately afterward, Tun led Rario back to the secret base to introduce the new member to the group. Through a thorough investigation and information gathering process, they learned of Soma's recent activities. He was ambitiously negotiating a major deal with 3 leading pharmaceutical companies from Germany, China, and Japan. The next morning, the group drove to Soma's company headquarters to set up their ambush. Nabi immediately used her agility to sneak into the center of the information technology department. She skillfully switched the telephone cable from Soma's office to the group's receiving equipment. Now, all of that old fox's communications will be directly connected and under the control of the Revenge Squad. Having completed the preparations, Nabi immediately returned to the car with everyone, patiently waiting for the prey to fall into the trap. Sure enough, after a while, Soma fell for the trick when he called the Japanese pharmaceutical company. He expressed his desire to hold an urgent meeting with the partner directors on your side. The negotiation revolved around the purchase of new goods, and he was eagerly awaiting confirmation. On the other end of the line, Nabi immediately imitated a Japanese accent to smoothly handle the situation. After Soma hung up, the Japanese company actually called Soma to confirm the information. This time, Nabi again intercepted the call and directly answered the phone from the partner. She pretended to be Soma's company secretary to answer the Japanese representative. The Japanese company called to say they agreed to hold a meeting to discuss the business contract. But Nabi flatly refused the offer, leaving the other party completely bewildered. With the goal of cancelling the official meeting accomplished, the team began implementing the next phase. The responsibility in this section depends entirely on Soo-kyung's quick wit and adaptability. Her new role is that of a senior representative managing the Korean office of a Japanese company. The confident woman walks straight into Soma's headquarters to discuss economic cooperation. Soo-kyung's sharp wit and superior demeanor easily manipulated the fox-like man's thoughts. She stipulated that both sides must conduct a product inspection the following day before approving the agreement. The decisive moment arrived the next day when the entire group gathered in front of the building. The sophisticated trap set by Tun and his teammates led Soma to fall into it without a doubt. The corporation's computer network was hacked to find a vacant room for Soo-kyung to receive Soma. The remaining members of the team focused on cleaning and arranging the room to resemble a real office. The plan began when all preparations were complete. A senior employee of the Future Biology Institute, in the guise of Rio, entered the meeting room. The man loudly asserted that the opponent's batch of pharmaceuticals was counterfeit and substandard. Rio even strongly accused the product of stealing the institute's technology patent, demanding immediate on-the-spot testing of the source of the goods. The statement confused Soma and made him consider withdrawing to avoid the law. However, the allure of the huge $20 billion deal kept him back to do the inspection. The computer system was quickly hacked by Nabi and UI to interfere with and falsify all the inspection data. The display showing a failed status report plunged Soma into extreme panic. The man refused to accept reality and insisted on repeating the analysis process himself. Amidst this, Tun quietly left his post to head to the preparation area. An urgent message had just arrived informing him that his son Sankyu was nearing the afterlife and urgently needed this special medicine. Understanding the situation, Soo-kyung quickly stole a product sample and ran to deliver it to Tun. The woman urged him to immediately go save the child and promised to handle the mess herself. Soo-kyung turned and went inside to finish the final scene to bid farewell to Soma. She also conveniently retrieved the exclusive file that the swindler had previously stolen. The team successfully completed their mission and withdrew smoothly from the scene of the classic scam. Soma, however, remained completely oblivious, nodding his head in satisfaction, thinking he had just landed a lucrative deal. He was gloating over his dream of getting rich from his Japanese partner when, at that moment, the door to the room burst open and the police stormed in and arrested Soma. Only at this moment did Soma realize he had been terribly deceived. But it was too late. The confidential documents on the computer had vanished without a trace. The only thing awaiting him was the cold prison bars for the rest of his life. In another development, Tae-jun, after obtaining the medicine, rushed to the hospital with the faint hope of fighting to save his child's life. But tragically, all the desperate efforts of the poor father came too late. His son had left this world forever to go to another, more peaceful world, leaving Tsun heartbroken and collapsing onto the cold hospital floor. In utter despair after meticulously arranging the funeral for his son, Tsun gave up everything and accepted imprisonment to pay for his actions. Tsun's life in prison was anything but peaceful, as there were always those who wanted to harm him. A corrupt prison guard was bribed to constantly harass Tun. At the same time, he heard that Soma had covered up the evidence and mysteriously disappeared from his cell. Even Tae-jun himself almost went to the Eternal Realm because of the insidious schemes. After months of arduous and dangerous rehabilitation, Tae-jun was finally released from prison. However, upon returning to society, he lived a life of debauchery and disorientation. He was neither human nor ghost. Before going to prison, Tun had fairly paid all the members of the group their wages, causing the revenge squad to disband and go their separate ways. After Ui Dung obtained a large sum of money, he succumbed to the sweet temptations of Y-Minute. The young man, NGE though, invested all his capital in stocks, totaling over $1 billion. Dung was completely unaware that the man with the glamorous appearance was actually a professional con artist. Many gullible people had been deceived by him, losing everything and incurring huge debts, falling into dire straits. Dung was still unaware of anything at this time, and was happily boasting about her investment success to Nabi and Sukyung. With 10 years of experience in the scamming business, Sukyung advised Dung to come to her senses and turn back. She was 99% certain that this young minute was a scammer, but Zung still maintained a naive, disbelieving attitude, even boasting that he would definitely strike it rich. He enthusiastically took Nabi and Sukyung to listen to Yang Min's grand lecture, with the intention of persuading his female friends to invest and get rich with him. A girl named Jumin, who was also a victim of the scam, was present there. During this hypocritical presentation, unable to bear it any longer, the brave Jumin stood up and exposed the fraudster's true face in front of the crowd. But as a result, she was quickly dragged out of the hall by security. The 3 members of the group who witnessed this began to doubt the credibility of the project. They decided to secretly follow them to see where those bodyguards were taking Jumin. The poor girl was dragged to a secluded corner to meet the con artist Minute privately. There, he forced her to sign an unjust confidentiality agreement. Meanwhile, the despicable Minute calmly left as if nothing had happened. 3 people high above observed and recorded all their dirty deeds. Dung was shocked to realize she had been deceived, so she went to his company to demand her money back. But naive Dung not only failed to get any money back but was also mercilessly thrown out onto the street by the aggressive security guards. Nabi, seeing her friend being mistreated, became enraged. She immediately went to give those people a good beating. Seeing the opposing side's men becoming increasingly numerous and aggressive, Dung fearfully pulled out her phone to call the police. Ironically, despite doing a good deed to defend herself and save a friend, Nabi ended up getting into trouble. She was arrested by the police for disturbing public order right in front of someone's company. Before being taken away, Nabi didn't forget to turn back and scold Zung a few times for reporting to the police at the wrong time. At the police station, she was detained for questioning and informed that she could only be released when a guardian came to bail her out. When Zung and Sukyung Hot-Hai rushed to the station to bail their friend out, they received a surprise. They were surprised to hear the police announce that Nabi had already been bailed out by another guardian. The mysterious man who took Nabi away was none other than Roy Rio. After Roy Rio needed to treat Nabi's wounds, she began to open up and tell him about her desire to get the money back for Zung and the other innocent victims. Nabi expressed his hope that Roy would once again lend a helping hand to their group. Seeing Roy remain silent and unresponsive, Nabi felt a little disappointed and embarrassed, intending to leave as if he hadn't said anything. Meanwhile, Zung insisted on meeting with his boss, Tun, to ask for help. He believed that Tun would use his wit to get the money back. Sukyon reluctantly took him to Tezen's current residence, where they witnessed their former leader now living a dissolute life, drunk and wandering aimlessly on the streets. Seeing Tun's pathetic state, Dung couldn't bear it and carried him back to her home to take care of him. The next day, Uyung received a call from Nabi instructing him to take action. He followed her instructions and infiltrated a secret meeting of the victims. During the meeting, he shrewdly noticed someone present who, despite not being scammed, was eavesdropping. Uyung suspected this was a spy planted by Min to sabotage the organization. Without hesitation, Zung immediately dragged the spy outside to interrogate him thoroughly. Minute saw this and quickly followed to assist. However, as soon as Zung stepped outside the door, he was ambushed by 2 burly men in black. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Nabi and Rario arrived in time to rescue their teammate. The 3 of them returned to the base to meet Tun, who was gradually regaining his senses after a long bout of drunkenness. They sat down and analyzed the situation in detail with Tun, pointing out that this Minute definitely had a close connection with Soma, because he had invested a huge amount of money in Soma's pharmaceutical company. Previously, the whole group concluded that behind these guys there must be a mysterious mastermind pulling the strings and manipulating everything. Tune, of course, knew this because he had personally witnessed how Soma was brutally murdered in the closet. However, at the present time, Taejun felt utterly depressed and no longer cared about worldly affairs. The pain of losing both his wife and child made him feel that life had become meaningless, with no goals left to strive for. But after a long night of tossing and turning, Taejun finally came to a clear understanding. He vowed before his son's spirit that he would start his life anew and would definitely drag that mysterious boss out into the open. to avenge the wrongful death of his beloved son. Thus, the Revenge Squad was reunited once again with all its most elite members. They returned, more formidable than before, with unwavering determination. The Revenge War officially began, and the first target in their sights was Young Minute, the island missile. They meticulously forged documents to establish a highly prestigious and luxurious shell company. Then they sent a VIP invitation to a high society party to Young Minute. Being a fame seeker, Young Minute was overjoyed to receive such a prestigious invitation. He even went live to show off his invitation to the world, completely unaware that he was walking straight into a trap that had been set for him. The lavish party unfolded exactly as Tun's group had planned. In this scene, Tun and Sukyon pretend to be a wealthy oil tycoon couple with the aim of gaining Wai Min's trust and approaching him to begin their plan. Sukyon plays the role of a heroine, skillfully rescuing Wai Minute from an awkward situation with another guest. Young Minute was overjoyed to see that he was being helped by a wealthy woman who had given birth to him. He immediately went to greet Sukyung and Taejun, who were sitting elegantly next to him. Taking advantage of the moment when Sukyung was using her charm to draw Wai Minute into the conversation, Tun cleverly made an excuse about having personal business and quietly slipped away to carry out the next step. Outside, Taejun coordinated seamlessly with Ui Sung, who was disguised as a reporter. They pretended to want to photograph a rare horse being cared for by the horse manager. Then, they used the story of the horse's immense value to gain trust and stir up Young Min's insatiable greed. The three of them acted incredibly skillfully and in perfect harmony, successfully attracting his special attention to the lucrative racehorse investment deal. While Wai Minute was engrossed in watching horses with Tun to discuss business, Sukyung quickly and skillfully stole the phone from his jacket pocket and calmly left, secretly handing it to Ui Zung, who was waiting in a hidden corner outside. After just a few skillful maneuvers, Ui Zung successfully accessed his phone's data, but Sukyung cleverly returned the phone to its original place without him knowing. The two of them, one playing along, one enjoying the moment, the other enjoying the moment, had a spectacular success, making Wai Min's investment in racehorses yield a profit 1,000 times greater than investing in stocks. Sure enough, the naive Wai Minute fell into the trap and called Tun to arrange a meeting at the end of the week to discuss this business deal in more detail. On the appointed day, Young Minute was taken by Sukyung to visit the horse racing track and was extremely excited to experience horseback riding for the first time. In his excitement, he demanded to buy a horse to invest in and told Tun that he wanted to own the best horse there. But Taejun coldly poured cold water on the idea, saying that horses here are not sold individually. If you want to buy one, you have to buy an entire large-scale horse farm. Although Young Minute was somewhat overwhelmed by the request, he confidently declared that he would prepare enough money. Just as the fundraising was about to be successfully completed, Yin unexpectedly received a strange call. Ui Dung wanted to eavesdrop on the call to identify the caller, but the incoming number was blocked and highly encrypted, so they could only use manual eavesdropping with their ears. Therefore, this important task was assigned to Tun and Sukyon. The two pretended to go for a walk, and Lan La approached Yin, was standing and listening to the phone call when they overheard him mentioning the huge sum of 30 billion. Both of them guessed that he was receiving a new, more lucrative investment, and of course Tsun would never allow that to happen and ruin the plan. They quickly conferred and devised a new battle plan to disrupt things. This time, it was the turn of the super thief Nabi to take the lead. Sukyung secretly frightened the horse, causing it to fall backward and crash into Yin. At that moment, Nabi appeared in an extremely beautiful and magnificent way to catch him. As expected, the lecherous Wai was immediately captivated by Nabi's alluring beauty. They then went out for an intimate dinner at a fancy restaurant. There, Sung introduced Nabi to Wai Minute as his precious cousin. Chun, sitting next to them, also chimed in, adding fuel to the fire and exaggerating her status. He fabricated a story that Nabi was the pampered daughter of the chairman of a famous corporation, and that she also possessed the talent of being an excellent and skillful horse rider. When Minning heard this, his eyes lit up, even brighter than car headlights. He immediately asked for Nabi's personal contact information to get acquainted, and then pestered her to teach him how to ride a horse professionally. Returning home in a state of blissful happiness, young Minute constantly fantasized about a happy home with children and Nabi. Unable to control his emotions, he hastily called Nabi to invite her to dinner. Nabi, feigning innocence and shyness, agreed to his invitation. While Ui Zung stood beside her, Watching her friend flirt with guys, she suddenly felt an indescribable annoyance in her heart. Afterwards, the four of them, Sukyeon, Taejun, Nabi, and Y, went together to experience the art of incense. Nabi sat next to Y-Minute, chatting excitedly about this aristocratic pastime. She said that only the super-rich could afford this high-end incense. This further aroused the interest and false pride of the wealthy Y-Minute. He boldly declared that he would buy some of this incense to use gradually. Nabi skillfully steered the conversation towards the topic of expensive horse breeds. She said she longed to have a purebred horse of high class, because, according to her, those horses could be bought even with money. She wanted to own them to satisfy her passion and bring in a huge fortune. At the end of the outing, young Minalang took Nabi all the way home. He wanted to stay and watch her safely go inside before leaving. But the problem was that this house was only borrowed. Nabi didn't know the door password to open it for him to see. Uy Dung wanted to hack the door lock, but it was a high-level security system. They were short on time because young Minute was watching intently. In this urgent situation, Sukyeon urged her to just risk ringing the doorbell. She told Nabi to say she was a messenger from God if a stranger opened the door. Nabi gritted her teeth and did as instructed, secretly praying for a miracle to happen. Unexpectedly, the door was miraculously opened as if by prearrangement. The entire revenge squad breathed a sigh of relief as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted. Y-Minute, seeing Nabi enter the luxurious villa, believed it completely. He continued to immerse himself in dreams of a house and children. The next day, Sukyeon called to ask if he wanted to buy a breeding horse. Claiming he had found a place selling excellent breeding horses at a bargain price, he listened to the beautiful woman and immediately agreed to go with Sukyeon. At this time, Royo appeared in his new identity as the president of the Horse Racing Association. He and Sukyeon took young Minute on a tour and carefully examined the horses. They took turns boasting to him about the incredible value of the horses. Young Minute was dazzled by the sheer grandeur of the place. Rio sealed the deal with a price of 32 billion gold for the entire farm. Hearing the enormous number, young Minute began to feel a little hesitant and uncertain. Just then, Sun appeared, acting as a powerful catalyst. He pulled Sukyeon aside but deliberately spoke loudly so Minute could hear. Both of them deliberately discussed how profitable these horses were. Tun showed enthusiasm and asserted that he was also very interested in buying the farm. Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, Rio seized the opportunity to deliver a decisive blow. He told Y-Minute that the deal had to be finalized by tomorrow morning at the latest. If we don't act quickly, this lucrative farm will fall into Taejun's hands. Y-Minute went home and thought for a while, his heart filled with worry about missing the opportunity. He then arranged to meet Nabi to consult the horse trader's daughter. He asked her if she knew about the reputation of that horse farm. Nabi confidently asserted that the farm was very famous among the upper class. To increase her persuasiveness, she showed him a photo she had taken there. In reality, it was just a Photoshop creation by Uy Zung. All of Y-Min's doubts completely vanished after seeing the photo. Y-Minute excitedly told Nabi that she was determined to buy back the horse farm. Nabi was overjoyed upon hearing this, but still pretended to be surprised. She subtly added fuel to the fire by saying that there were many rare and valuable horse breeds there. If Minute could buy one, her parents would gladly approve of the relationship. Feeling empowered, young I immediately ran to gather the money to sign the contract. However, as he eagerly brought the money to meet Rorio, he received a call from a mysterious person. Immediately, young Minute changed his mind and drove to meet the man in a private room. Young Minute respectfully addressed the man as boss and knelt down, begging for investment. The mysterious man, seeing Yang Min's insatiable ambition, did not stop him. He coldly declared that he was cutting off all ties with Young Minute right there. Abandoned, Young Minute felt resentful and became even more determined to become truly wealthy. He called Rio to inform him that he would be going to the horse farm for a final inspection before signing the contract. The revenge squad, upon hearing the news, panicked during the night trying to resolve the situation. First, they quickly hacked Y-Min's car's GPS to make him get lost. This was intended to buy them time to set up a fake ambush. It seemed they could easily pass the test, but another difficult problem arose. Tomorrow was the annual horse breeding convention at the farm. If Y arrived there first, he would certainly learn the truth about the farm owner. Then their elaborate deception plan would fall apart. Luckily, they arrived one step ahead of Y. Sukyeon Tun and Rario quickly rented a luxurious room nearby. They used this place to entertain Y-Minute in order to distract him. Once everything was ready, the group went to the door to welcome their prey inside. They took Y-Minute to see the horses, but almost ran into the real owner. Fortunately, Ui Sung discovered the danger in time and warned everyone. In this critical situation, Tun cleverly lied, saying the man was Rurio's father. He fabricated a story that the man didn't know about his son selling the horse farm so that everyone would avoid him. They went back to the hotel to discuss the matter discreetly in order to mislead young Minute. However, young Minute was stubborn and insisted on going to see the horses. He said he would drive around to inspect them himself, almost ruining the plan. Sukyung and Tun stood there silently, worried about this obstinate customer. Y-Minute drove to the horse farm area and met Nabi, who was waiting there. She quickly regained her composure and cheerfully led Y to her prize horse. Just when it seemed everything was going smoothly, the farm owner unexpectedly appeared. He was surprised and asked Nabi who she was and why she was there without permission, leaving her stunned. Luckily, a quick-witted stable hand ran to her rescue in time. He whispered to the owner that it was the daughter of a wealthy tycoon who had arrived by carriage. Hearing this, the stable owner immediately changed his demeanor, smiling broadly. He politely led his group of visitors to another place to see the young lady, so as not to disturb her. Breathing a sigh of relief, young Minute was extremely satisfied with the trip after inspecting the horse. He and Nabi returned to the luxurious room that the special forces had prepared. There, Roy Rio handed him the meticulously drafted sales contract. Without any suspicion, young Minute signed his name and handed over 32 billion gold in cash. Everyone felt sorry for the fool, so they decided to let Nabi stay to entertain him a little longer. In the romantic setting with just the two of them, he tried his best to flirt with Nabi. Ui Dung saw this through the camera and couldn't stand it, so he jumped out of the car. He pretended to be a room service employee to disrupt the two of them. Ui Dung deliberately made noise to cause trouble and ruin the flirting atmosphere. While he turned to look at the intruder, Nabi quickly acted. She secretly put a powerful sleeping potion into his glass. Y-Min didn't suspect anything and drank the entire fateful glass in one gulp. Just a few minutes later, the potion took effect, causing him to collapse unconscious right there. When Y-Minute woke up, he excitedly took the contract to the horse farm to hand it over, but alas, the horse had vanished and the writing on the contract had completely disappeared. He panicked and hurriedly called Rio to find out what had happened. But all he received was a cold voice saying the phone number didn't exist. At that moment, the blaring sirens of police cars echoed throughout the area. Yangang Minute was caught red-handed for fraud and embezzlement. The revenge squad returned the stolen money to the poor people he had deceived. The remaining money was divided among them as well-deserved spoils for their efforts. The operation was a resounding success, but they couldn't rest yet because the mysterious mastermind behind it had not been brought to light. Sometime later, chaos erupted in front of the Hosen Security Company as a riot police unit confronted a group of protesters who had been unjustly dismissed. Both sides clashed, creating a chaotic and uncontrollable scene. Taking advantage of the situation, a group of masked strangers infiltrated the crowd. They attacked and knocked out a police officer on duty at the scene. Coincidentally, that police officer was a close friend of Tun's. The old police officer then arranged to meet Tun in a secluded place. He asked him to find the person who had attacked his colleague. Out of friendship, Tun agreed to help his old friend. After successfully scamming Y-Minute, Taejun invested the money he earned. He built a new, super cool, and modernly equipped secret base. This place left all the members speechless with amazement when they entered. Taejun appeared and explained his new job to everyone. After analyzing the data and images of the scene, they concluded that they were certain that the police officer named Own Vien was not one of the protesters. He was a stranger who had received extremely thorough martial arts training. To find out more, Taejun disguised himself as an insurance agent and went to the protest site. He skillfully inquired and gathered information from the workers there. They confirmed that the aggressive man wielding the iron rod was not one of their men. They even showed Tun the video of the altercation as evidence. Tun took the video back to the base to carefully analyze each frame. From the video, they found a highly suspicious individual lurking in the crowd. This person was identified as an employee of a security company. He was also a member of a special tactics and weapons team with high martial arts skills. Rio observed from above and then jumped down to join the discussion with everyone. He agreed and believed that Ui Zhang's speculation was completely accurate. This attacker acted very brutally, quickly, decisively, without any unnecessary movements, proving that he was a professional who had received extremely thorough and rigorous training. The next day, Soo-kyung disguised herself as a representative of a security company named a doctor. She went to Hosen Company and offered to take their place in signing the security contract. The representative, Hosen, was very hesitant after hearing the attractive bid price, which was only half the usual amount. However, in his confusion, he accidentally blurted out that he had no authority to decide. Suki cleverly inquired about who had the ultimate decision-making power. However, he immediately evaded the question and wanted to see her off right away. After leaving Hosen, everyone moved to the company headquarters. Ryo disguised himself as an employee to apply for a bodyguard position at the company. He entered the interview and boldly issued a reckless challenge. He declared that whoever could defeat him would work for free for a year. The interviewer, angered by this, quickly summoned the bodyguards. They organized a duel to teach this arrogant guy a proper lesson. Through this, Ryo wanted to determine if the person who assaulted the police officer was here. Due to his background as a professional special forces soldier, Ryo easily won overwhelmingly. He single-handedly took on all the company's security guards without any harm. This alarmed the director, who was the head of the organization. He quickly went to the training room to see what kind of god Ryo was. While he was away, Nabi sneaked into his office to act. She quickly installed malware to infiltrate the director's personal computer. This takes about 5 minutes, so Ui Zung told Nabi to make the most of the time. He suggested she could steal something from the safe in the corner of his room. Nabi thought it was a good idea, so she went to check the safe. But his safe was a high security type, requiring the owner's voice to open it. However, this couldn't faze a talented super thief like Nabi. She calmly pulled out her specialized tools intending to deal with the stubborn safe, but at that moment, a secretary unexpectedly arrived with documents for the director. Nabi had to quickly find a place to hide to avoid being discovered. At this point, the process of hacking into the computer data was also complete, so Nabi, she had to reluctantly say goodbye to Director J's safe without managing to steal anything. After testing his skills against his opponents, Ryo informed Tun that the man who assaulted the police officer was not among them, because none of them were skilled enough to withstand more than 5 of his punches. Having completed the mission, Ryo proudly bid farewell to Director Joe and left. The group then gathered back at their secret base to synthesize and analyze information. By extracting security camera footage from the area where the incident occurred, they discovered a suspicious commonality in most of the fight scenes. A white Mercedes car was present in all of them. Determined to find the clue, they planned to locate this car. At the same time, the difficult task of retrieving the dashcam data was assigned to the talented super thief Nabi. Living up to everyone's expectations, Nabi successfully obtained the data. However, when he ran the facial recognition program, the result returned 0. There was absolutely no data about the car owner's face. Ryo pondered for a while before making a judgment based on experience. He thought the man might be a former Russian mercenary. He was living under the guise of a deceased person, or what he called a ghost. Ryo asserted that he knew the man's face because they had encountered each other before. They had clashed in a fierce civil war in Ukraine many years ago. Ryo further analyzed that mercenaries become assassins after being discharged from the army. Therefore, the police officer being severely injured was not a random scuffle but a deliberate assassination attempt by this cold-blooded killer. From here, T-Jun began to suspect the identity of the mastermind behind the incident. He put forward the bold hypothesis that the mastermind was the police chief, a powerful man because only he had the authority to mobilize forces, and was the only one who knew the scale and timing of the protest. To verify this, Sun and Rurio went to the old police officer to ask for clarification. However, the old policeman insisted that the chief was not a bad person because he always treated the injured police officer like his own son. Furthermore, he even formed a special task force with the determination to catch the person who had harmed his trusted subordinate. Then, the old policeman drove the two to the hospital where the victim was being treated. T-Jun wanted to take the opportunity to ask the policeman's wife some questions to clarify his suspicions. He went into the ward and met the wife who was taking care of her husband there. Ryo was in charge of watching their little daughter outside. Tun tried to get information from his wife about her husband's recent work, but she just shook her head sadly, saying she didn't know anything because her husband rarely shared. Unable to gather any promising clues, Tun called Ryo to prepare to leave. Ryo told Tun to wait a moment while he went to buy some refreshments. But when he returned, he accidentally saw a doctor who looked extremely suspicious. MCH's intuition told him to follow the person immediately to check on the two people who entered the hospital elevator together. Rio pulled out his phone and pretended to have a casual conversation with Tun, but in reality, he was secretly sending a warning signal to his teammate. Understanding the hint, Tun immediately followed Ryu's instructions and ran up to the 5th floor to intercept them. Knowing he had been exposed, the assassin no longer disguised himself and launched a vicious attack on Ryu right inside the elevator. In the cramped space, the two engaged in a fierce battle. Both were covered in injuries after the deadly blows. When the elevator reached the 5th floor, the doors opened before Tun's eyes, but inside, only Ryo appeared, his face contorted in pain. It turned out the assassin had cleverly taken advantage of the nurse's presence downstairs to escape. Seeing Ryo injured, Chun quickly helped him to get his wounds treated. Meanwhile, the notorious assassin had also managed to bypass the police guards. He quietly left the hospital without anyone noticing. Ironically, the police officer who was unwittingly outsmarted by the killer was the chief. He had just arrived at the hospital to inquire about the health of his subordinate. Witnessing Chief Tun's concern, his judgment began to waver. He thought he had misjudged the man and decided to leave, but at that very moment, he received an urgent call from the members. They provided shocking information that this case was actually closely related. The mysterious white Mercedes belonged to his wife. Moreover, before being harmed, the police officer had sent an important email. The letter sent to him contained accusations against corrupt elements within the organization. These individuals were within the police ranks and were involved in corruption. Before the tragedy occurred, the police officer met privately with the chief to report directly. He reported that there were people in the department secretly supporting corruption and receiving huge bribes. The police chief, after hearing this, inquired whether anyone else besides him knew about it. He instructed him to keep the matter absolutely secret for the time being. Then he himself sent the police officer to the scene of the protest. He did this to carry out his wicked scheme. And indeed, the harsh truth was revealed. He was the one who was secretly plotting. This ruthless man hired a professional assassin to ambush the police officer. He wants to cover up the incident to protect himself. Now things have gone beyond Tun's group's control. The case involves both the Bu clan and the powerful police force. Sukyung worriedly advised Tun to stop before it was too late. Nabi and Ui Zung also agreed, fearing the risks of losing people if they continued to get involved. Chun angrily shouted that if they let the evildoers run rampant, it would be better to disband the group. Although they opposed disbanding, everyone was still very wary of the great risks. Only Ryo was determined to pursue this case to the end. He affirmed that evil must be punished appropriately regardless of who he is, and that power cannot be above the law and trample on justice. Rario's strong words boosted the morale of the group, making them determined to continue fighting side by side. They agreed to resolve the case but had to adhere to 3 prerequisites. First, absolute safety must be ensured. No one must be harmed, especially Ryo, who always rushes into the most dangerous places. Second, instead of directly approaching the director, which is too dangerous for the whole team, they will take a roundabout route through the company's director. Third, and most importantly, the team must absolutely not be disbanded no matter what happens. The official battle plan was activated immediately afterward. Sukyung disguised herself as a waitress at a fancy restaurant. She approached the director while he was having a meal with his wife. Meanwhile, Nabi once again broke into his office to pry open the safe. She quickly removed the hidden camera on the Buddha statue and connected it to her phone to collect his voice sample to unlock the voice-activated safe. However, trouble arose when the recorded file was distorted and noisy. Such a corrupted audio file was completely unusable. Through the Tsuntran and Nabi walkie-talkie, calmly look for other clues. Observing through the camera, Tuntin noticed an old record case on the shelf. He suddenly remembered an important detail. The man had sung a part of the song Drankot. Grasping this valuable information, Sukyung from the restaurant began to act. She cleverly enticed him to order food to collect a clearer voice sample. After receiving the file, Ui Dung used specialized software to process it. He encoded and edited it, turning it into a song melody with his voice. The edited audio was immediately sent to Nabi to unlock it. Thanks to that, the stubborn safe finally surrendered and opened. Seeing the inside filled with glittering gold coins, Nabi was blinded by greed. but Jun sternly ordered over the walkie-talkie that absolutely no one was allowed to take anything. He asked not to touch anything to avoid alerting anyone. While Sookyung was happily enjoying the fruits of his acting, Director Joe suddenly returned, causing the entire Tun Uy team and Sookyung to jump in surprise. Everyone thought he had discovered the team's whereabouts, but it turned out he only came back to ask for the phone number of the beautiful waitress Sookyung. Quick-witted, she gave him the hidden phone number that Uy Sung had prepared. And so, with just a few simple steps, his phone was hacked. His device was completely controlled without any effort. The initial plan was a resounding success, and the whole team happily returned to base to discuss the next steps. Through analyzing the collected financial data, they discovered that many new projects were being implemented. However, paradoxically, the internal financial report showed a serious deficit that was increasing year by year. Even more suspicious, they also discovered land lease contracts with exorbitant prices. Their land rental prices far exceeded the market average. Upon further investigation, they uncovered the truth that the landowner was investing in a shell company. This shell company had no clear origin and operated in a completely shady manner. After adding up all the unreasonable expenses, the total loss reached 8 billion, and all of that money went straight into the pocket of the greedy police chief. The group's ultimate goal is now clear: to extract that 8 billion from the mouth of that cunning old fox, and at the same time give him a pair of cold iron bracelets of the law. Tun showed everyone the chief's detailed schedule for tomorrow. He asked the whole group to go to the scene to scout the actual situation. The next day, Nabi and Sookyung appeared at the charity event location. Sookyung disguised herself as a generous benefactor making a donation. She approached and greeted the chief in a friendly and formal manner at the event, while Nabi, playing the role of a quick-witted reporter, pulled out her camera and captured the moment. She photographed Sookyung standing with the department head for documentation. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Sookyung cleverly gave him the business card of the fake doctor's company. She whispered that the doctor was planning to take over the company. Upon hearing this shocking news, the chief's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly left. Meanwhile, Sookyung had successfully completed his mission. Now it was Tun's turn to enter the fray. He went to the headquarters and requested a direct meeting with Director Joe for negotiations. Tun went straight to the point, stating that he wanted to buy the entire company. Director Joe, upon hearing this, scoffed disdainfully at his proposal. He arrogantly said that their company wasn't something easy to buy, and even with money, one couldn't necessarily get their hands on this brainchild. Undeterred, Jun calmly mentioned the incident involving the injured police officer. He deliberately emphasized the detail that the officer was loved by the chief like his own son. Director Joe laughed loudly after hearing this, mocking Jun's information as shallow. He confidently boasted about his close relationship with high-ranking police officers. Tun smiled meaningfully and showed him the photo Nabi had just taken. He sarcastically remarked that if he was really that close to the chief, why wasn't he invited to this important event? Meanwhile, their BS company was lagging behind in the VIP guest position. Seeing that intimate photo, Director Do began to panic intensely. He was extremely afraid that he was about to be ridiculed. Meanwhile, after receiving information about the transaction, the chief immediately called Director Joe to check the situation. But he couldn't contact his henchman because his phone was now under police control. Tun, posing as the director, replied via text message that he was busy in a meeting. He texted that he had an important meeting and would contact the chief later. Reading that indifferent message, the chief was on pins and needles with worry. He was afraid his enormous sum of money would be affected and couldn't wait any longer. He immediately drove to the headquarters to find Director Joe and demand an explanation. As soon as the office door closed, the director's rage erupted. He slapped the director hard across the face and kicked him hard, then ordered him to open the office's secret safe. The director, dragging his aching leg, went to the safe. He sang a distorted song to unlock this stubborn safe. The safe door swung open, but instead of the usual stacks of money, inside there was only a strange piece of paper lying there. The chief picked it up and was shocked to discover the truth. It was the transfer contract for the doctor's company. The director, upon seeing the paper, was utterly terrified. He immediately knelt down and swore on his life that he knew nothing. He insisted he had no idea why it was there. He was right not to know, because it was a surprising gift from life. A gift that the talented super thief Nabi had secretly left behind when he broke into the safe. The fish had bitten the bait, and the revenge team decided to take the next step of their plan to corner him. They posted it online. The video footage of the violent altercation the day before, along with false rumors that it was caused by company employees, spread like wildfire and quickly reached the department head. To protect himself, he decided to sacrifice the director as a pawn. He coldly informed him that he would be taken to the station for questioning tomorrow, promising to only send him to prison for 2 years to appease public opinion, and also pledging to cover all expenses for his family during his sentence. After his reputation completely collapsed, the chief quickly contacted the doctor's side to negotiate, hoping that this company would step in to take his place and continue the illicit profiteering. The next day, Tun and Sakayan went to meet the chief at a secret location. There, he cleverly asked Sakayan to leave so he could speak privately with Tun about sensitive terms. As soon as she was out of sight, he activated an electronic jamming device to cut off all of Tun's communication with the outside world. He even carefully asked him to hand over and turn off his phone. He went straight to the point, asking Tun what he knew about him. Tun, without any fear, calmly exposed that he knew perfectly well that the person behind it all was actually him, and Director Joe was just a puppet being manipulated by him. Taking the initiative, T-Jun made a bold proposal that he wanted the chief to give him 30% of the shares. In return, he committed to recovering his capital and making a profit within 3 years. The offer was so lucrative and attractive that it struck at the chief's insatiable greed. He agreed to let Jun buy the shares and cooperate in business, but the price he demanded for the shares was sky-high compared to reality. Sun pretended to agree to prepare the money but cleverly asked him to contribute to the already insufficient reserve funds. This request was intended to complete the legal documentation for the acquisition, and he promised that after the procedures were completed, he could withdraw the funds at any time. The chief, calculating the pros and cons and seeing that the money would eventually go back to his pocket, immediately agreed to invest without any hesitation. The next day, at a deserted trading location, the contract was signed and 8 billion world quickly flowed smoothly into the pockets of the revenge squad. However, just as Tezen was about to leave, he suddenly changed his tune. He pulled out a gun and pointed it directly at Tezen's head. The sick man demanded that Sun prove his loyalty by personally killing the director who was tied up there. He wanted to videotap the scene to use as evidence to control Tun forever. At the same time, outside, the Phantom Assassin also appeared and engaged in a life-or-death battle with Royalo. It turns out that Rio had been secretly hunting for him all this time to settle an old score. Seeing their teammate in danger, the other members rushed to his rescue, but they witnessed Rio losing ground and about to fall at the hands of the madman. In a moment of impulsiveness, they grabbed a stick and lunged at the assassin, hitting him on the head. Nabi saw this and immediately pulled out his electric gun to provide support, but ironically, the one hit by the electric bullet was the unlucky Ui Zhang. The situation became extremely critical as they were cornered. With no other option, Sakayan risked his life driving straight and ramming into the assassin. The horrific collision made Joy Law unable to help but utter eloquent words. Finally, the most dangerous assassin was defeated. Rario quickly checked his phone and found crucial evidence. It was a recording of the chief's call ordering the police officer's execution. Everyone rushed to Chun's location to rescue him. Rio promptly handed over the irrefutable evidence to the old police officer who had just arrived with his troops. Seeing the old police officer appear, the chief was overjoyed, thinking an ally had come to his rescue. He immediately ordered the officer to hand over the recording. Seeing him, the old police officer remained motionless like a wooden statue, showing no intention of obeying the order. The chief immediately became furious and pointed his gun at his colleague to threaten him. Seizing the moment, he was distracted and trembling, rushing forward like lightning to snatch the gun and deliver a devastating punch to the corrupt chief. The blaring sirens of police cars tore through the tense atmosphere, signaling the successful completion of the special operation by the Revenge Squad. After completing the procedures, the entire 8 billion dong that the chief had embezzled was returned to the victims. The whole group happily went home in the jubilation of victors. However, they were completely unaware that their every move had been secretly photographed from afar. Those photos were quickly sent to some mysterious figure hiding in the shadows. This signaled that the storm was far from over. Putting aside their worries, today was Nabi's birthday, so everyone gathered to throw a cozy party for her. On this occasion, the whole group gave her a very surprising and meaningful gift. It was the information about the address of the nursing home where Nabi's respected former teacher was living. Without hesitation, Nabi and Ui Zhang quickly went to that address to visit their old friend. When Nabi saw that Master Insu was now old, weak, and frail, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with emotion and compassion. Ui Dung gently took out some pastries to offer her as a token of his affection. But suddenly, Insu went mad, snatched the pastry from his hand, and devoured it. She ate hastily as if she had been starving for a long time, leaving the two onlookers stunned and saddened. Outraged by this sight, Nabi stormed into the headmaster's office to demand an explanation. The steely-skinned woman accused him of not providing her and the other elderly people with enough food and drink. Furthermore, suspicious bruises appeared on their emaciated bodies. In response to her anger, the arrogant headmaster evasively claimed that they were old and mentally unstable, often harming themselves. After saying this, he brutally and mercilessly chased Nabi out of his office. Nabi was determined to take Mrs. Insu away from this hellish place immediately. But as she approached, Mrs. Insu cowered and wept, begging desperately. She kept muttering pleas for Nabi not to hit her, her heart aching as if it were being squeezed. Realizing that she was in a state of panic and couldn't be taken away immediately, she reluctantly left a phone and told her to call her whenever she needed anything. That night, unexpectedly, they received a secretly recorded video on their phones, showing a horrific scene of nurses brutally raping elderly people right in the nursing home. It turned out to be a video sent from an anonymous number to the phone that Nabi had secretly left for her master. She immediately forwarded the video to everyone in the group to review and analyze together. Through the mixed sounds, they heard a name briefly mentioned in the video. Ui Dung suddenly remembered that it was the name of the nurse who took care of Mrs. Inku, and everyone speculated that she was the brave one who recorded this crucial video evidence. The next morning, Nabi rushed to the nursing home to find the nurse to ask about it, only to be shocked to learn that she had unexpectedly submitted her resignation. Yesterday, seeing that the trail had been cut off, Ui Dung had to use her technological skills to investigate her current whereabouts. The whole group went to that address and luckily met her. Through the tearful account of the nurse, they learned a horrifying truth. Jay had previously filed anonymous complaints with all authorities about crimes at the nursing home. Sadly, all her efforts were met with silence and received no response. Until the day she received an official response. Ironically, it didn't come from law enforcement agencies but from that cruel director himself. He forced her to resign immediately to cover up the evidence. Even more cruelly, he falsely accused her of embezzlement. This severely tarnished her reputation and made it impossible for her to find another job. Through the information gathered and preliminary investigation, Tun's team was certain that the nursing home had embezzled a considerable amount of money from the elderly and needy. The Revenge Squad tried every means to infiltrate Director Inho's bank account to investigate the flow of money. However, the result was unexpected and beyond all expectations. His personal account was almost empty, not a single penny in his pocket. Sun frowned, analyzing that there were only two possibilities in this case. First, he used a secret account in someone else's name to transfer his assets. Second, he cleverly converted all his assets into cash and hid it in some secret place. To investigate the matter thoroughly, the young man, disguised as a gentle male nurse, applied for a job at the nursing home. On the very first day, Ui Sung was deeply shocked by the incredibly grueling work schedule. Each day, employees here only get a meager 30 minutes of rest. He quickly complained about this cruel exploitation of labor, but was met only with cold indifference from the other members, who simply told him to take care of himself. The official plan began. Nabi stormed into the nursing home, causing a commotion and loudly demanding that Mrs. Inu be taken away immediately to exert pressure. In reality, this was just a diversionary tactic to lure the director, Inho, out of his office. As soon as he hastily left to deal with the mess, the golden opportunity arose. Ui Dung quickly infiltrated the deserted office, installed malware on his computer, and stole his data. Once everything was done, Ui Dung was about to sneak away when the director unexpectedly returned. Their eyes met in a tense atmosphere, Ui Dung's heart pounding out of his chest. Quick-witted, he made up a story that he was a new employee on his first day of work and got lost, then quickly ran away before he could recover. After a hard and stressful day of work, Ui Zung dragged his tired and exhausted body back to the base. Here, everyone is also diligently searching for data related to Inho's bank. But despite their best efforts, they still haven't found any promising clues. The whole group decides to shift the investigation to his father, Chairman Zhong Ji-yu, who is the real owner of this nursing home. However, he is known to be very suspicious and cautious. So, Tun's group decided to use Inho's son as bait to carry out their plan to sow discord between father and son. Through investigation, they learned that Inho had also secretly resented his authoritarian father. Roy Rio had long been sent to the nursing home to assist with work and protect the family's prestige. While Tun begins his play, he pretends to be the long-lost son of an old woman living in a nursing home, approaching director Inho directly with a worried and sincere expression. Taejun fabricated a story that he had been searching for his mother for a long time and had finally found her, but he wanted to ask the director to keep it a secret and let his mother stay there for another month because of a fierce family inheritance struggle. He emphasized that no one should be told, especially his ambitious younger brother who was plotting to seize the family fortune. After saying this, Taejun discreetly took a large check from his wallet and gave it to the greedy director as a hush money. Seeing Taejun's wealth and generosity, Inho's eyes lit up like headlights. He immediately took the check and promised to take good care of Taejun's mother as if she were his own. In another development, Sookyung transforms into a stunningly beautiful and alluring lady, attempting to approach Chairman Jong-gu at an event. Sure enough, the lecherous old man fell for her sweet charm. He happily went to dinner with Sookyung at a top-notch restaurant. Faced with Sookyung's beauty and charm, the chairman was completely infatuated and forgot his way home. That night, Nabi used a male voice-changing device to call the director, Inho, to inquire about the information regarding the old woman Tun claimed to be his mother. Remembering the lucrative bribe money, the director vehemently denied it, asserting that no such person existed there. As soon as he hung up, he hurriedly called Tun to report his success, to tell him that a stranger had inquired about him, but he cleverly denied it to protect his brother's secret. Tun feigned gratitude and immediately pulled out another check as a thank you fee, which made the director ecstatic. Thuan Dat Jun inquired about the upcoming expansion plan for the nursing home. The director sighed heavily, admitting that he once had such ambitions, but his father, Chairman Jong Ji-yu, had resolutely rejected them. He confided that if he patiently waited another year or two, he would rightfully inherit the entire business, so he had to obediently listen to his father. After hearing this, the paralyzed man let out a sigh of regret and hidden meaning. He successfully sowed curiosity and anxiety in the mind of the director. The fish-like man had taken the bait, so he signaled Nabi to act. She disguised herself as the private secretary of Chairman Jong-gu and went to the lawyer's office to announce that the chairman wanted to change the contents of the will and inheritance rights. The lawyer frantically called Inho to report the shocking news that his father wanted to change the legal heir. In utter panic, Inho hastily called Tun for help, whom he trusted as someone with extensive experience in inheritance disputes. At the discreet cafe, Tun analyzed that his father's sudden change of will could only be due to the appearance of some woman who had bewitched his mind. At this moment, Sookyung, in perfect coordination, led Chairman Jong Ji-yu to stroll past the director. That intimate scene made Inho Ho completely believe what Tae-jun had said. Blood rushed to his head, and he was eager to chase after his father to get to the bottom of it. Tae-jun added the final blow with a secretly taken photo of his father being intimate with Sakayon, making Inho even more convinced that his father intended to sideline him and give the inheritance to his young and beautiful mistress. Meanwhile, Chairman Jong-gu was completely captivated by Sakayon. He took her to his private villa to talk. Sookyung intended to secretly put sleeping pills in his drink to make it easier to carry out her plan, but in her panic, Nabi mistakenly gave her a bottle of wake-up medicine instead. Fortunately, Tae-jun and Nabi quickly realized the disastrous mistake. They immediately rushed to rescue Sookyung, who was in a life-threatening situation. Tun quickly knocked out Chairman Jong-gu and, along with Nabi, carried him to the car. They took him to a fake hospital that the group had set up to set the fire. When he woke up, he found himself lying in a hospital bed with tubes and wires all over him. The chairman was extremely confused and didn't understand what had happened. Sookyung sat beside him, pretending to be worried about his health. She urged him to undergo a comprehensive general checkup along with a CT scan of his brain to see if there was any serious illness. Because yesterday, while we were having a pleasant conversation, he suddenly fainted. In the role of Dr. Tae-jun, he calls his son Inho to inform him to come to the hospital urgently, claiming that a family member is needed to hear the diagnosis of his father's condition. It turns out that before this, Jun had secretly brainwashed the hospital director, instilling in him the idea that if he wanted to inherit the family fortune early, his father had to be seriously ill, while reassuring him that he would handle everything smoothly. When the hospital director, Hot Hai, rushed to the hospital and received the fake medical report that had been photoshopped. He was overjoyed to see that his father had been diagnosed with senile dementia. Emboldened with the evidence in hand, the director went straight to the city mayor to present the matter, painting a picture of his father's serious illness, his inability to think clearly, and according to the law, he will naturally inherit and manage the nursing home in a few days. He also did not forget to affirm his desire to continue the nursing home expansion plan that the mayor is interested in. Meanwhile, Soo-kyung continues to play the role of the little lover. She met the chairman with an extremely distressed expression and said that she had just been swindled out of $4 billion and was being relentlessly pursued by creditors, so she had to say goodbye to the chairman and go into hiding. Unable to bear seeing the beautiful woman in distress, the old chairman rushed to the nursing home to check the financial situation in order to raise money to save Soo-kyung. But as soon as he arrived, he received shocking news from the staff. His son had colluded with the mayor to seize power and expand the nursing home. Enraged, he immediately decided to fire his son from the director's position. However, Eno was no pushover. He was determined to fight his father to the end and ruthlessly kidnapped and held him captive. Due to this internal conflict, the nursing home was forced to announce a temporary closure for repairs. The elderly patients being treated there were gradually returned to their families for care. Unfortunately, INSIC's file stated that she had no relatives, so Nabi couldn't use her family status to take her home. Using professional methods, Rio secretly monitored and discovered the chairman's whereabouts. He was being held captive by his son in the dark basement of the nursing home. Rio approached, knocked on the door, and made an attractive offer. If the man would cough up the money, he would help get him out of there safely. But the desperate man quickly claimed he had plenty of money and told Royal to name his price. When Rio coldly stated $3 billion for his freedom, the old chairman started his stingy ways again, haggling back and forth, complaining about not having that much cash readily available. Rio emphatically stated that he had lost his turn and turned to leave. The old man, in utter panic, hurriedly called out, begging and promising to give the full amount requested. However, he explained that the safe containing the money was in his office at the nursing home and was specially designed so only he could open it. Rio blindfolded him and secretly led him to that room. As soon as he was untied to open the lock, the cunning old man immediately pushed Rio down and quickly ran away to escape. Unbeknownst to him, everything was part of the Avengers' plan. Their real goal was to find out the exact location of the lock. Releasing him was also part of a pre-planned scenario. As soon as he ran away, the super thief Nabi immediately took his place. She pulled out her specialized tools to battle the stubborn safe. After successfully opening the safe and obtaining the necessary information, everyone returned to base only to receive urgent intelligence. The deranged director was planning to set fire to the nursing home tomorrow. Earlier, he had secretly purchased several high-value fire and explosion insurance policies, along with a series of life insurance policies for elderly people living alone. His ambition was to burn everything down to eliminate the victims and profit from the enormous compensation money to build his own new empire. The situation became critical. While the group was racking their brains trying to find a solution, Soo-kyung's phone suddenly rang. The screen displayed the name of Chairman Jong-gu. Only then did they realize that the variable was a fake chairman's name. Because his son still didn't know that his father had escaped, the revenge squad decided to split their forces. Soo-kyung will go to confront and hold off Chairman Jong Ji-yu, while the rest will rush to the nursing home to rescue the innocent elderly people. At the nursing home, Tun and Rario are lying in ambush. While the director was going down to the basement to check on his father, Ui-dung quickly pushed him inside and locked the rebellious son in the dark basement. Ui-dung was in charge of the important technical task of preventing gas leaks, ensuring that no explosion occurred as planned, and also preparing a surprise gift for the director. Nabi was responsible for evacuating and rescuing everyone. The nurse, Yu Du-wei, bravely returned to assist, and with her years of experience, she helped everyone move quickly to safety. After everything at the nursing home was settled, Soo-kyung led the chairman back with the promise of taking the money and then fleeing together. He happily ran to open the safe, hoping to dispose of the assets. But alas, the safe was still there, but the money inside had vanished without a trace. At this point, Tun appeared with a dignified and serious demeanor, declaring that his son had reported him for embezzlement, and you are an undercover police officer planted to gather evidence. Seeing that he stubbornly refused to cooperate, Tezen delivered a decisive blow that knocked him unconscious immediately. Down in the basement, the director was shouting when suddenly there was a loud explosion, followed by a thick cloud of white smoke. After inhaling the strange gas for a few minutes, he collapsed into unconsciousness. Ui Dung, along with Tezen and Rario, quickly moved down to the basement and dragged the director out to another room. That room had been renovated to look exactly like a real police interrogation room. When the director LD woke up, he was horrified to find himself handcuffed tightly in the cold interrogation room. He was utterly bewildered and terrified when he saw the people standing in front of him. Facing him now were Rurio and Ui Sung, playing the roles of cold-blooded investigators with menacing, bullet-like eyes. They took turns intimidating and interrogating him for a long time about his crimes. But the director remained stubbornly defiant, refusing to confess. Finally, Rio decided to deliver the ultimate blow to break his resistance. He coldly showed him a live video of his father being held in a similar arrest in the next room. The director, seeing the video of his father also being arrested, immediately panicked. Fearing that all the blame would fall on him, he hastily confessed. He cried out in despair that everything was orchestrated and forced upon him by his father. Right in the next room, his father was sitting and clearly hearing his precious son blaming him for everything. He was so angry his face turned purple that he couldn't hold back any longer and shouted back vehemently. And so the tragicomic drama unfolded as both father and son recounted each other's heinous crimes in the hope of getting a lighter sentence. Ui Dung immediately used advanced techniques to hack into the police's communication system, allowing the police to directly hear the entire forceful confession of the father and son. The blaring sirens of the police cars once again echoed through the night, signaling that justice had been served. The revenge squad had achieved another glorious victory, brilliantly punishing the perpetrators. The group happily returned to base when they unexpectedly received a new, challenging, and serious commission. This time, it involved a renowned pediatric cancer hospital. An honest employee bravely came forward to expose the horrifying truth. The hospital had cruelly used an unapproved, experimental drug. Even more outrageous, their test subjects were innocent children suffering from cancer. The heartbreaking result was that one child died due to the side effects of the medication. But the hospital shamelessly denied all responsibility. They falsified records stating that the child died due to a worsening of the disease, and forced the uninformed guardian to sign a confirmation beforehand. Therefore, it is currently impossible to conduct an autopsy to find the cause. The case exploded and quickly attracted special attention from the public and the state jury. The urgent thing they need to do now is to find a way to infiltrate the jury, influence and steer the jury's conclusion in a direction favorable to justice. Coincidentally, Han, who was nominated to be on the jury this time, refused to participate. The reason was that she was pregnant and her health was not good enough for a lengthy trial. Therefore, infiltrating that vacant position became easier than ever for the fire-digging group, and the person chosen to impersonate Hyson and go to the jury was chosen. This time it was none other than Sukyung. The next day, Sukyung transformed into a glamorous and eye-catching pregnant woman. She confidently went to court to run for a position on the jury. Although her acting was somewhat exaggerated and over the top compared to the average person, Sukyung still successfully joined the jury. She will join 5 others in holding the scales of justice in this crucial trial. Through background checks on the remaining jury members, the group discovers that juror number 5 has lied on his resume. Everyone suspected that the person was a spy bribed by the hospital to sabotage the operation, so they specifically warned Sukyung to be extremely careful and wary of this person. The first trial officially began in a solemn and tense atmosphere. The entire group gathered at the base, attentively watching the proceedings through hidden cameras. Chun was surprised to see a familiar face in court, the deputy director who had given him the fateful business card at the beginning of the film. According to the testimony, amidst the tears of the female doctor who bravely exposed the hospital, he was the one who directly instructed and gave her the vial of medicine to inject into the boy. And that medicine was asana, a substance touted as miraculous but whose safety had not been verified. Later, she was shocked to learn the true identity of that deputy director. Although he knew that the asana medicine was still in the risky experimental stage, he cruelly used it on child patients as living test subjects. In his eyes, these poor children were just guinea pigs to help him perfect his medicine. Sukyung, with his keen observational skills, also discovered another unusual detail. The prosecutor was wearing a pair of specialized headphones in his ears, identical to the ones they were using. He seemed to be intently listening to instructions from some mysterious person outside. The mysterious person wants Soo-kyung to read aloud the medical certificate in the prosecutor's hand, because she is playing the role of a sensitive and compassionate pregnant woman. Perhaps after reading the certificate, the mother's compassion will surge strongly. This will have a beneficial psychological effect on the hospital and the mysterious person. Through the camera feed transmitted from Sukyeon Uy-sung's glasses, he cleverly noticed that the prosecutor's glasses weren't ordinary prescription glasses. They were smart glasses with a sophisticated hidden camera. This meant someone was monitoring and manipulating the entire trial. He was controlling the prosecutor's actions and words like a puppet. And what was even more surprising and shocking was when the identity of the culprit was revealed. The person behind the manipulation of the prosecutor was a face very familiar to Tun. He was his close friend who had always been by his side, supporting him wholeheartedly during the most difficult time when his son was ill. And he was also the one who enthusiastically came to pick up Sun on the day he was released from prison. The revenge squad, seeing that the prosecutor had been blatantly manipulated by the villain, could no longer sit idly by. Nabi and Rio immediately went to the cancer hospital to investigate further clues. Rio disguised himself as a handsome new male nurse to approach the target. He quickly befriended the beautiful nurses working in the hospital. Seeing Rorio's handsome and masculine appearance, their eyes lit up and they immediately approached him as if they had struck gold. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Rio skillfully asked them for information about the brave female doctor who had come forward to denounce the hospital. But as soon as they heard that sensitive name, the nurses' attitude changed completely. They immediately made excuses about being busy and dispersed, leaving in a hurried and suspicious manner. Tun instantly realized the situation was not good. I couldn't get any information from the orderlies because they seemed to have been silenced. He immediately instructed the master thief Nabi to act in her own way. Nabi nimbly infiltrated the vice director's private office. She then connected a device to synchronize his computer with the base's computers. While waiting for the data synchronization to complete, Nabi looked around the room and inadvertently discovered a cleverly disguised safe. Driven by her professional curiosity, Nabi couldn't resist and immediately took action. She quickly cleared out the safe in just a few moments. Sure enough, the safe was full of documents and ledgers recording the bribery activities of that man. More importantly, it contained confidential documents about illegal Asana trading transactions. Nabi excitedly wanted to take all the evidence back as a gift for Tsun, but Tsun stopped her over the walkie-talkie, saying that even if she took it back, it wouldn't be usable in court. According to the law, the documents were collected through illegal cable theft and therefore had no evidentiary value. Meanwhile, the trial continued, but the situation seemed extremely unfavorable. On the defendant's side, the manipulated prosecutor continuously presented sharp arguments and fabricated evidence. He deliberately steered public opinion in favor of the irresponsible hospital. The deputy director even brazenly colluded with the hospital's lawyer. They conspired to shift all the blame and responsibility onto that poor female doctor. Meanwhile, Uy-sung also set out on a mission to track down the source of the headset signal. The signal led Uy-sung to an extremely dark, gloomy, and deserted place. He tried to suppress his fear, cautiously stepping inside to find out who was manipulating the trial. But upon arriving, he was disappointed to find only a signal amplifier there, while the real manipulator was hiding in another safe place. The worm instructed Uy-sung to immediately cut off the signal to sever all communication between the prosecutor and the mastermind behind it. Less than a minute later, Uy-sung, with his superior technique, completely cut off the signal. The mysterious figure, seeing the screen go black, immediately called the prosecutor directly. He reported that the transmission signal had been cut off due to external interference to avoid suspicion, and requested the prosecutor to contact him using another backup method. At the same time, Uy-sung also found the hidden camera planted by the mole in the jury. He quickly informed Soo-kyung of the suspect's location so she could be on guard. Upon receiving the information, Soo-kyung discreetly scanned the area and finally spotted the suspect. Uy-sung patiently stayed a little longer to meticulously infiltrate the system. Finally, he managed to hack into the mysterious figure's data server. He immediately sent all the captured audio data to Tun to listen to. Hearing the familiar voice in his headset, Tun was stunned and turned to look at the screen. The atmosphere in the base suddenly became colder and heavier than the Antarctic ice. Tun couldn't believe that the ruthless, mysterious figure behind everything was an old acquaintance. The person he once trusted and considered a good brother turned out to be the mastermind. Chun was overwhelmed with confusion, pain, and utter disappointment at the harsh truth. Soo-kyung, seeing that Chun was in a bad mood and knowing he was in shock, reassured him that she would handle everything at the trial. Soo-kyung acted quickly. Unbeknownst to anyone, she secretly stole a valuable necklace from a girl sitting next to her on the jury and swiftly slipped it under the seat of the bribed man. Immediately afterwards, the girl discovered the theft and shouted, causing chaos in the courtroom. Police searched and found the necklace at the seat of juror number 5. He was immediately arrested for theft in court. Ryo and Nabi continue to persevere at the hospital to search for new evidence. While UI discovers a crucial clue from social media, the family of the deceased boy's roommate posted a photo. The photo was taken on the very day the unfortunate boy received his injection. Ryo, upon receiving this valuable information, immediately takes action. He tried to approach the mother to ask for the original photo file as evidence, but Nabi ruined it at the most crucial moment. Luckily, with his handsome appearance and sincerity, Ryo managed to get her contact information. He successfully persuaded the mother to send him the photo. As expected, behind the photo was a crucial detail: a nurse giving an injection to a pediatric patient in the hospital room. However, the significant detail was that this fateful injection was not recorded in the patient's medical records. The photo was quickly sent to the doctor's defense lawyer. The lawyer, as if he'd struck gold, quickly submitted this new evidence to the court. Fortunately, this clear photographic evidence was accepted for consideration. The prosecutor, upon seeing the unfavorable evidence, lost his composure. He secretly pulled out his phone and texted a mysterious person for help. Suki, sitting in the jury box, also keenly observed all those suspicious actions. She was shocked to realize that the mysterious figure was also brazenly present at the trial to monitor it. The mysterious figure quickly contacted the deputy chief prosecutor sitting in the witness box. The deputy chief prosecutor reassured them that there was nothing to worry about. He fabricated the reason that the hospital's inventory received hundreds of different items every day. Due to the heated argument between the two sides, the trial had to be temporarily adjourned for deliberation. The mysterious figure, seeing the critical situation, quickly ordered his henchmen to act. He demanded that the nurse be prevented from testifying at this afternoon's trial. But how could the experienced revenge squad be so easily defeated? Ryo personally drove Nabi and the witness nurse. He skillfully maneuvered the car, successfully shaking off the pursuing henchmen. Then he sped to the courthouse to make it on time for the resumption of the trial. However, as they neared their destination, their car was blocked by an unfamiliar vehicle. Ryo calmly got out of the car, giving a haughty smile at the burly henchman opposite him. He decided to stay behind alone to spar with the intruder. Nabi, meanwhile, continued driving, taking the nurse to the courtroom on time. Now, the crucial witness had arrived just as the trial resumed, but the experienced team of assassins wasn't so easily defeated. He immediately presented evidence in the form of the nurse's complaining messages. In them, she had messaged in a group chat with her colleagues, saying she was tired and stressed, and then pulled out a bottle of blue liquid identical to the Asana bottle. He eloquently argued that the nurse had injected the wrong medication due to exhaustion and lack of concentration. Seeing that the trial wasn't going smoothly and justice was being blatantly distorted, Taejun couldn't stand it any longer. He decided to reveal himself and stepped out from the audience seats. Sun requested permission to appear before the court to testify. He emphatically declared that he was the one who sent the photo and witness information to the lawyer. He also asserted that he was a suffering victim of this heartless hospital. Seeing Tun's sudden appearance, the mysterious figure was startled and immediately left quietly. Tun's abrupt appearance caused confusion among everyone in the courtroom. After the mysterious figure left to avoid Tun, he still didn't give up and continued to control the trial remotely. In another secluded place, he ordered the prosecutor to look Tun straight in the eye and repeat his words. He prompted the conversation, saying that Taejun, overwhelmed with grief over the death of his son, sought revenge against the presiding doctor. That presiding doctor was none other than the deputy director sitting there with an innocent expression. He completely denied the validity of Jun's testimony and dismissed it as slander from a deranged father. Without hesitation or trembling, he calmly pulled out the real Asana vial he had kept hidden in his jacket pocket. The appearance of the vial of evidence caused the prosecutor to panic. He immediately glanced around, searching for help from the mysterious figure, but to no avail. This clumsy behavior was noticed and suspected by everyone in the courtroom. Tun requested the court to allow fingerprint testing on the medicine bottle. He immediately asserted with absolute certainty that the deputy director's fingerprints were still present on it, and the scientific test results would be the strongest evidence proving that what Tun said was true. The mysterious figure, speaking through the earpiece, ordered the prosecutor to do everything possible to prevent the court from accepting the evidence. The prosecutor obediently followed his orders and presented numerous legal reasons to object. However, Tun was one step ahead when he pulled out a previously obtained test result from his pocket. This completely cornered the prosecutor and forced him to make a difficult choice. First, it was acknowledged that the legitimate test results held by Tsun were correct. Second, if he dared to say that Tsun fabricated evidence, the court would have to send someone to conduct a retest. Either way, the results would be undeniable truth. Thanks to Tsun's great efforts and resourcefulness, justice was served. The trial concluded with a successful verdict proving the female doctor's innocence and exposing the hospital's crimes. After the trial, Tae-jun went to meet the mysterious figure privately to discuss the matter. However, he still hadn't revealed his true identity. At this moment, Tae-jun wanted to play a bigger game, forcing the figure to reveal his true face. Everyone returned to base in triumphant joy but still harbored many anxieties. Uy-dun began a silent journey to monitor the mysterious figure's every move. Tun witnessed the scene where the deputy director was mercilessly abandoned by the mysterious figure. After he was no longer useful, he was treated like a stray dog. Seizing this opportunity, he immediately called him and made an extremely tempting offer. Tun asked him to cooperate in helping him catch the mysterious culprit and bring him to justice. In return, Tun promised to find a way to exonerate him or reduce his sentence. The vice president, now at his wit's end, had no other choice but to immediately agree to Tun's offer of cooperation. He revealed that this matter involved a much more influential figure, a promising presidential candidate named Kim Nam-jun. He held some crucial evidence that could bring these people down. So he arranged to meet Tun at 9 p.m. tomorrow at a secluded location to hand over the evidence. At the appointed time, under the flickering streetlights, the two men saw each other from a distance. The deputy director had just stepped out of the car, clutching a crucial file in his hand, intending to hand over the evidence to Tsun. At that moment, disaster struck unexpectedly when a speeding truck suddenly hurtled towards him, sending him flying into the air. Immediately afterward, a group of strangers quickly got out, cleaned up the scene, and took his body away. They immediately drove away, disappearing into the silent night as if they had never existed. Witnessing that horrific scene, Tae-jun was stunned, remembering the death of Dr. Soma years ago. He too had been brutally murdered in prison to silence him in the same cruel way. Tae-jun returned to base with a serious expression and overwhelming anxiety. He informed everyone that the mysterious figure was far more dangerous and ruthless than they had imagined. Therefore, to ensure the safety of the members, he decided that their group should temporarily disband. They needed to go into hiding for a while to avoid suspicion and the relentless pursuit of that boss. Otherwise, they would all end tragically like Soma and that unfortunate vice director. After a heated argument, they decided to heed Tun's advice first. They reluctantly parted ways temporarily and returned to their normal lives. Tun also reverted to his old persona, continuing to work as a diligent insurance investigator. He donned his smart suit for work, like a model citizen. The insurance company director, who was also a close associate of the mysterious figure, quickly called to report the situation. The mysterious figure ordered him to closely monitor Tsun, not to be careless for even a second, and to immediately report any unusual activity so that he could take action. He also assigned additional people to monitor Tsun 24/7, reporting every action and detailed schedule of Tsun's daily activities. Tsun knew perfectly well but ignored the persistent stalkers. He pretended not to know anything and continued playing his role perfectly. He went to the director's office and proactively proposed a new job request. He said he wanted to investigate the gold theft from a construction company called Misa, and expressed professional doubts that it was actually a staged theft to profit from insurance money. After work, Jun Than Thoi went into a flower shop. He chose a beautiful bouquet and sent it to Sukung's address. Upon receiving the flowers, Sukung quickly deciphered the hidden message that Jun had sent. Everyone in the revenge squad quickly received the secret summons. At exactly 9 p.m. that evening, the entire secret group gathered at a noisy karaoke bar. Amidst the loud music, they pretended to be a group of friends having fun, dancing and exercising to the music to deceive the enemy. After the stalker left, the loud music died down, giving way to silence and a serious atmosphere. The group began their important mission with intense focus. Sun started by announcing their next target, investigating the Misa construction company. The reason is that the person behind that company is the mysterious Jun Hill, who is collaborating with presidential candidate Kim Nam-joon. In reality, that construction company is just a front. They defrauded insurance companies to pour money into a secret slush fund, and that huge slush fund will be used by Kim Nam to fund his presidential campaign. Furthermore, it's also a place for money laundering and carrying out a series of illegal activities for profit. The first step for the Revenge Squad will be to focus their investigation on Choi CJI, the general manager of Misa Construction Company. Upon seeing her face appear on the screen, Soo-kyung suddenly exclaimed in surprise. It turns out Choi CJI is a notorious con artist, on par with Soo-kyung in the industry. She's known as the con artist of con artists. Upon encountering a formidable opponent, Soo-kyung's fighting spirit immediately soared. Realizing this target seemed difficult to deal with and full of cunning, everyone decided they had to find a clever way to get her to reveal the hidden money herself. The plan was that after obtaining the money, they would cast a net to capture both the mysterious figure and presidential candidate Kim Nam. Through investigation, they confirmed that Choi CJ would have a gold transaction with a gang tomorrow. Nabi disguised herself as a female police officer and went to the transaction location, intentionally getting caught by them. Then, Soo-kyung and Rario also disguised themselves as police officers and raided the location to assist Nabi. The blaring police sirens frightened the gangsters so much they fled in terror, not daring to look back. The first step of the plan had been successfully completed. From now on, no gang would dare to do business with Choi CJ anymore for fear of being caught by the police. Seeing Ui Dung appear, Taesun immediately led him into Misa's company server room. After some manipulation, the keyboard user successfully infiltrated the server system, paving the way for the next steps. Immediately after completing the mission, Sun received a call from the police station. The person he met this time was the driver of the car carrying the gold in the case from years ago. Materials resembling a homemade bomb suddenly appeared in his house, leading the police to suspect he had orchestrated the gold robbery himself. Sun sent a picture of the police officer interrogating the driver to the Revenge Squad. Rio immediately recognized the corrupt officer as the same one he had secretly met with a few days earlier. It seemed Choi CJ had bribed him to find a scapegoat. Sun requested a private meeting with the driver and asked him to recount the details of the incident. According to the driver, that day he was sent by Choi CJ to transport goods. On the way, a loud explosion suddenly occurred behind the car, along with the appearance of a group of aggressive men in black. They pulled out guns, threatened the driver, and stole all the gold from the trunk. The driver recalled that among the robbers there was one with a distinctive tattoo. That tattoo belonged to Choi's X's trusted accomplice, who was always by her side. After the failed deal with the gangsters, Choi's X was severely reprimanded by the tattooed man for ruining a major opportunity, causing her to sit and drown her sorrows in alcohol at a high-end bar. At this moment, Roy Rio appeared looking incredibly handsome and flashy. He was wearing a body full of glittering gold and deliberately went to sit next to Choi X. As expected, Choi X was immediately attracted. Faced with Roy Rio's cool and wealthy appearance, in less than 3 seconds, she proactively turned to strike up a conversation. Just then, the tattooed man appeared with a suspicious look and asked Roy Rio who he was. The members of the Revenge Squad quickly dispersed to avoid suspicion when they saw the tattooed man approaching. Choi CJ introduced him to Rario as an illegal jewelry dealer looking to make a deal. The three quickly moved to a more discreet location to discuss business. Rio led them to a secluded spot where Sakayan and Nabi were waiting. Choi CJI wants to sell them gold worth up to 10 billion won. Soo-kyung, playing the role of a crime boss, agrees to buy it immediately, provided the gold is in good condition. However, with years of experience in the scamming business, Choi CJI suddenly feels suspicious when she sees that this transaction is unusually smooth and successful. She thought she was being scammed and immediately stood up to end the transaction. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, Tae-jun immediately signaled Ui Dung to intervene and salvage the situation. Ui Dung appeared, posing as the head of the trading team of the Korean Gold Exchange, and introduced himself as someone who specialized in turning illegal gold bars into legal ones for the Sakayan Group. Choi CJ stopped in her tracks upon hearing this. She cautiously took out her employee ID card from her purse to check. After verifying that the information matched, she temporarily believed it and left with her accomplices. To expedite the process, Choi CJ approached Sakayan to propose an urgent transaction. However, this required seamless coordination from Taesun. He and his colleagues went to see Choi CJ at the office to inform her that they had found the suspect in the old gold theft case. Choi CJ urged them to quickly close the case so she could collect the insurance money. But Tun calmly said that since the suspect was a first-time offender, a thorough investigation was needed. They will cooperate to find the lost gold before proceeding with the insurance claim. Hearing this, Cho's expression changed because the gold was actually in her possession. If the police demanded to find the gold, it would take a long time to find it, and the insurance money would be suspended indefinitely. Sun delivered the decisive blow by claiming her job required her to inspect her company's treasury. As expected, she was worried and hurriedly contacted Rio to arrange a meeting. That evening, Choi CJ and the tattooed man arrived at Sukung's meeting place, bringing a real gold bar for Ui Sung to test their craftsmanship. Sukung told Nabi to go inside and get water for the guests to distract them. Nabi quickly went inside, took out a fake gold bar she had prepared, and slipped it into her sleeve. When she brought out the water, she quickly swapped Choi CJ's real gold bar into the processing machine. After a while of technical manipulation, her illegal gold bar was transformed into a legitimate gold bar with a serial number. Choi CJ, with a tattooed name, saw it with her own eyes and immediately agreed to the big deal. After gaining their trust, the next step was to collect the 10 billion won insurance money tomorrow. After completing the transaction, Choi CJ would receive that huge insurance money. But that money wouldn't go into her pocket. It would be transferred directly into the pockets of the revenge squad. However, an unexpected incident occurred when Ui Zung, after completing his mission and about to leave, was stopped by the tattooed man. He was suddenly kidnapped and taken to another secret location. The situation became urgent. Chun mobilized, and everyone immediately tried to find a solution. The tattooed man had the ambition to steal the gold from Choi CJ, so he captured Ui Zung and forced him to help him make the gold his own. And he intended to use explosives to break down Choi CJ's treasury door. Ui Dung tried to stall, saying that method was not feasible because the treasury had very modern vibration sensors. Seeing that his plan failed, he immediately pulled out his gun, intending to shoot Ui Dung because it was useless. Chun, through the eavesdropping device, tells Choi CJ to tell him that he will help him unlock the vault shortly. Chun goes to Choi CJ's company, using the excuse that he wants to inspect the vault today because he has to submit the monthly report tomorrow. Choi CJ reluctantly agrees on the condition that he doesn't touch any of the items there. Chun accepts the request and then goes down to the vault with Choi CJ. Nabi used the camera attached to Tun to sketch out the treasury's layout. Ui Dung, based on Choi CJ's description, described the treasury structure to the tattooed man. After observing everything, the team realized that Ui Sung alone couldn't handle it, so Tun secretly sent Nabi and Rario to provide support. Early the next morning, Nabi and Rio went to the gold vault before Sam's group arrived. Sukyung would be tasked with distracting Choi CJ. Outside, Rario quickly knocked out the guard and disguised himself as a security officer to help Nabi infiltrate the vault. While Nabi was inside researching how to unlock the treasury to help Ui Sung, Sam's men, who were escorting Ui Sung, arrived. Ui Sung and Rario approached and staged a fake fight to buy time for Nabi. As soon as Nabi successfully opened the treasury door, Rario pretended to be defeated by Ui Sung. Ui Zung and the tattooed gang gleefully entered the glittering vault. Inside, Ui Zung pulled out a specialized earpiece, pretending to fiddle with the lock a few times to buy time. The purpose was to give Nabi time to disable the sensors inside. After Nabi dealt with the sensors, Ui Zung entered the code to officially open the vault door. Having completed his mission, Ui Zung quickly ran away before they could react. At this moment, Choi CJ returned to the company and saw the tattooed man stealing the gold through the camera. She panicked and quickly ran down to the basement to stop him. Seeing this, Ui Dung jumped into her teammate's car and sped away with the gold that had already been loaded, leaving the stupid-looking tattooed man there to face the consequences. They realized they had been tricked and quickly chased after Ui Sung's car. But when they stopped the truck, the person who got out wasn't Ui Sung, but Tezin. They had used the classic trick of shedding their skin like cicadas to fool Choi CJ. And the tattooed gang members were arrested by the police shortly afterward for theft. Thanks to the video recording of the theft, which Rario edited and sent directly to the police, Choi CJ believed that his trusted tattooed friend had betrayed him and stolen his gold. Choi CJ had already received 10 billion won in insurance compensation. But now that all the real gold in the vault was gone, the insurance money was useless. Sun went to her company to get her signature on the case file and politely gave her a luxurious pen as a farewell gift. She had no idea that the pen contained a miniature tracking device. The revenge team tracked CJ's location signal to find the mastermind behind it. Sure enough, she went to meet the mysterious Jun Hyang at a secret location. Rio conveniently took some photos of them as evidence and sent them to Tun. According to the plan, Tun would release the video evidence to expose them. But suddenly, he received a threatening phone call from the mysterious man. He said that all members of the revenge squad were in his hands. It turned out that he had reported the gold theft and the suspects to him. The mysterious figure with a sharp mind guessed that it was Chun's group who did it. He lured the revenge squad to an abandoned factory and locked them up there. He even planted a time bomb to threaten everyone's lives. For the safety of his teammates, Tun had to temporarily leave alone to negotiate. Tun went to meet the mysterious man in person to make a life-or-death deal. He would hand over all the evidence of the crime. In return, they had to release his men safely. Tun was handcuffed and taken to the abandoned workshop where everyone was being held captive. As agreed, Tun gave the evidence to the man, and the man threw the key to their release to Tun. However, as Tun entered to unlock the door, he intended to press the bomb detonator button to eliminate everyone. But at that moment, the sirens of police cars suddenly blared, surrounding the area. The man panicked, forced to stop, and hastily left to escape. Thanks to this, the revenge squad was rescued safely at the last minute. At this point, the old police officer realized that Tun had tricked him into coming here. The reason he knew to come was also due to Tsun's clever arrangement. A few days earlier, Tsun had asked him that if he sent out an SOS signal, he should immediately go to the location shown on the GPS. The team returned to base, but everyone still couldn't swallow their anger, so they were determined to uncover the truth. They realized that the things he controlled and manipulated were closely related to the medical and health sector. Therefore, if they persistently followed this clue, they would surely find his weakness. After a sleepless night, hacker Ui Zhang finally uncovered a crucial clue. Ui Dung investigates MBIO, a pharmaceutical company researching the drug Asana. One fine day, a male and a female employee of the company suddenly die under very mysterious circumstances. Currently, their bodies are still undergoing autopsy by forensic experts. Ui Dung investigated the call logs and discovered a coincidence. Before their deaths, they both called the same number belonging to Song Ho, the head of Mabio's research team. Rio and Nabi immediately went to his house to investigate. Upon arrival, they found the door locked and the inside silent, as if no one was there. Tun told Nabi over the walkie-talkie to break the lock to check inside. The two crept into the living room and saw Jong Ho, lifeless, sitting on the sofa. Rio observed the scene for a while before coldly concluding that it was the work of a professional lunatic who then fabricated the scene to look like a self-harm. Nabi searched the house but found no important personal belongings of her family. Feeling unsafe, she and Rio quickly left the scene. Just as they were about to leave, some uninvited strangers suddenly appeared. The two quickly dealt with the thugs and escaped safely. To get more accurate information, they had to invite the old police officer to the base for help. The police officer inadvertently brought them the police department's internal computer, allowing them to access the national database for research. They reviewed records of recent accidents or self-harm cases. The results showed a total of 5 murder cases with similar circumstances. Coincidentally, the deceased all worked in the medical field. Moreover, a year ago, all 5 of them attended a seminar on infectious diseases. And that seminar was sponsored by MBIO. They needed to investigate the dashcam data of S-Jong HS car, and that difficult task required the reluctant help of the poor police officer. The police officer initially vehemently opposed this rule-breaking action, but unable to withstand the psychological terror and noise of the crowd, he reluctantly accepted his fate. It was the police officer's first time committing a crime, so his hands and feet trembled slightly. Fortunately, he eventually completed the mission successfully, but his clandestine actions were noticed and suspected by a mysterious man in black. Upon returning to base, they analyzed the situation and discovered that he frequently visited an unnamed building. The police officer also found out that the owner of the mysterious building was named Yang Maizang, and her husband was the director of Maibiodung Hangu. The whole group went to the building to uncover the secrets inside and was shocked to discover that it was actually an illegal secret laboratory. After reviewing the collected documents, the group discovered that this place was researching a dangerous infectious virus that could be used as a biological weapon of mass destruction. The fact that the research staff were being dismissed one by one proved that the experiment had been successful. In addition, they noticed a strange new name on the list of graduate students, so they decided to shift their investigation towards that mysterious person. But the most urgent task right now was to deal with the aggressive thugs who were surrounding the building. They quickly got into the car and headed towards the fleeing graduate student. The girl suddenly moved very fast as if something was chasing her closely. And sure enough, the ruthless men in black found her hiding place. Without hesitation, they pulled out syringes containing poison, intending to incinerate the girl to cover their tracks. Fortunately, in that critical moment, Rio and Nabi appeared just in time to rescue her, driving away the attackers and saving the girl from the brink of death. They brought her back to their base to ensure her safety. But the next day, the media suddenly reported shocking news. The director of MyBio brazenly announced that the dangerous virus they were researching had been stolen, and the thief was specifically identified as the girl they had rescued yesterday. This false news quickly caused widespread panic among the people nationwide. The Avengers, realizing they had been manipulated, were furious. It turns out they spread that rumor with a double-edged sword, aiming to both erase their guilt of illegal research and create the perfect excuse to sell the vaccine at exorbitant prices later. The girl, realizing she had been falsely accused and made a villain, was extremely upset. She decided to tell the vengeful team the whole horrifying truth. She tearfully recounted that a year earlier she had been invited to join this special research group. Her first task was to create a dangerous virus. When she questioned her instructor, she only received evasive answers, such as the virus was being created for the purpose of researching a cure to help people. The girl was skeptical but still followed her instructor's instructions and worked diligently to successfully develop that virus. But one day, the instructor obtained confidential documents from his superiors and suspected they would use the virus for nefarious purposes instead of saving lives. So he told the group to stop the research and find a way to destroy the samples. The girl secretly left with the virus samples she had researched, but after a while, she heard that the members of the research group were all dying mysteriously one after another. The girl lived in fear, extremely worried that one day it would be her turn to be purged. And indeed, that day came. At this very moment, breaking political news appeared on the television screen. Presidential candidate Kim Nam-doo has declared he will establish a state-of-the-art healthcare system to prevent the virus, and has pledged to protect the people if he is elected in the next term. What a brilliant plan to sow fear and garner votes. This means that these ruthless individuals will deliberately spread the virus to carry out their dark political schemes. Through investigation, they suspect he will release the virus on the very day of the election campaign. Their urgent task now is to infiltrate the event and steal the virus sample before it spreads to the community. The operational plan is clearly divided. Breaking into the safe to retrieve the virus will be handled by Master Thief Nabi. Dealing with the security company's personnel will be assigned to Royal. Ui Dung will closely monitor the security camera system to support them remotely, while Sukung will be by her side to help the female graduate student get inside safely. The plan begins. Ui Dung starts by sending a congratulatory flower pot with a camera attached deep inside the auditorium. Through this, the whole group could observe the situation inside more easily. Next, Sukyeon helped the girl disguise herself as a waitress to infiltrate the hall. After the girl entered the safe area, Nabi skillfully crawled out from under the girl's food cart. Rio and Sukyeon also entered the hall with their assigned tasks. While everyone was gathered in the main hall listening to the speech, Nabi secretly entered Kim Nam's private room to find a virus sample. Luckily, she accidentally discovered the safe hidden behind a painting in his room. Ian, as expected, had carefully stored the dangerous virus inside. Nabi successfully retrieved the virus and was about to leave when the alarm suddenly blared loudly. Rio quickly moved to the location to rescue her teammate. At that moment, Sukyung and the female graduate student hurriedly took refuge in the restroom. However, Sukyung suddenly turned pale, causing the situation to become extremely tense. Faced with this perilous situation, Tae-jun immediately issued a command to communicate directly through Kim Namo's headset. He issued a stern warning, forcing him to hand over the mastermind behind it all if he still wanted to maintain his political career. Immediately afterward, Ui Zung cut off all the power, plunging the entire hall into darkness and chaos. Using the excuse of checking on Kim Nam's incident, he immediately left the auditorium to go to his private room to meet Tun. Meanwhile, Rorio and Nabi rushed to the restroom to rescue Sukung. However, upon seeing that all three had gathered, the female graduate student immediately sneaked out. She quickly locked the door, trapping them all inside. It turned out the revenge squad had fallen victim to a deadly trick. The female graduate student was actually a mole planted by the mysterious figure beforehand. Authorities also received a tip from the anonymous informant and immediately surrounded and apprehended the group of aggressors. However, when the police opened the box containing Nabi's virus sample, it was completely empty. Tune, witnessing this scene from the upper floor, laughed triumphantly. He loudly declared that it was their side that had fallen into the trap. Because no matter how skillfully the spy acted, she couldn't fool the mastercon artist's son. Tun's group cleverly used the spy's own weapon against her, turning her into a pawn in their own game. Kim Nam's entire confession in his private room was broadcast live to the entire nation. The horrifying truth was revealed, causing widespread public outrage and indignation. The police immediately raided the room and read out an arrest warrant for the candidate on charges of bioterrorism. Leader Tun then delivered a devastating surprise to him at the last minute. It turns out that the harmful virus sample was never taken by Nabi but remained untouched in the safe as valuable evidence. The wicked masterminds were finally handcuffed and punished by law. However, before being escorted away, the villain Jun Hyung still managed to throw a provocative glance at T-Jun. It turned out that the police officer driving the car escorting the ringleader was actually his trusted subordinate. Tun suddenly remembered seeing this familiar face somewhere before. He quickly called the old police officer to ask him to look up the license plate information. The outcome was as expected. The villain successfully escaped thanks to pre-planned precautions. This proves that another hidden force is secretly assisting him. This mysterious accomplice must have a very close connection with the MBI Corporation. The Revenge Squad immediately shifted their focus to director Dong Hangu. The group patiently followed him all day and noticed that he constantly changed vehicles to try and evade pursuit. His final destination was a secret research center that had been sealed by the authorities. His willingness to risk his life to sneak in indicated that it still concealed an extremely valuable secret. Waiting until Dong Hangu was out of sight, Nabi and Ui Sung secretly infiltrated the center to investigate. Both used specialized scanners to thoroughly search and discovered a secret compartment hidden behind a thick wall. When Nabi opened it, they found a detailed file about the new drug, along with valuable test samples. The girl quietly asked Leader Tun over the radio whether they should confiscate the evidence immediately. However, Tun calmly stopped her and asked her to put everything back in its original position to use as bait. He wanted to patiently wait until the enemy completed the transaction before striking to catch them all. The team continued to closely monitor the director's every move. Just as he was carrying the suitcase full of goods and preparing to leave for the secret meeting point, the team suddenly launched their attack. They quickly apprehended the man in an instant and seized the entire suitcase containing the evidence. Chun quickly disguised himself to impersonate the director and proceeded alone to the meeting point as scheduled. However, the situation unexpectedly changed when the opponent appeared to be a strange foreigner instead of the villain Jun Hyung. The menacing foreigner pointed a gun directly at Chun, forcing him to hand over the suitcase containing the real drugs. Faced with their leader's life or death threat, the entire team could no longer hide and were forced to reveal themselves to avert danger. They loudly declared that they were in possession of the real suitcase to mislead and buy time. After obtaining what they needed, the mysterious man quickly retreated from the scene. This incident meant that the masked man had obtained a crucial trump card to prepare for his escape abroad. The foreign accomplice immediately called to inform Mr. Chung of the details regarding the specific time and location of his departure. As planned, the villain Jun Hyung brazenly revealed himself at the port area. Just as he was about to step onto the deck to escape, the villain laughed triumphantly. He was absolutely confident that Leader T-Dun was completely powerless and could do nothing to him anymore. But before his smile could fade, the man standing next to him suddenly lowered his hood. Tun's familiar face appeared before the utterly astonished villain. It turns out that the suitcase the foreigner was carrying had been secretly fitted with a tracking device by the Revenge Squad. Therefore, all his movements and escape plans were known to the entire group. The Revenge Squad had actually been there since early morning, setting up a trap, just waiting for him to walk right into it. Toon immediately rushed forward and delivered a powerful punch as a firm condemnation. Immediately afterward, the remaining members of the group also joined in, delivering equally fitting blows. This action helped the entire team release all the pent-up anger and frustration they had been harboring. Suddenly, the sirens of the authorities blared loudly throughout the harbor. That sound officially brought to a close the criminal journey of the mysterious figure behind the curtain. The villain was quickly escorted to prison to atone for his cruel acts. In another development, the foreign criminal remained completely unaware of what was happening. He excitedly carried his suitcase full of precious medicine, preparing to go through the procedures to fly back home. He chose a coffee shop right in the airport grounds to stop and rest for a while. At the same time, he immediately ordered his close henchman to buy him a drink. But it seemed that bad luck was still not going to let this foreign man off the hook. The reason was that he had inadvertently chosen a seat right next to Sung. She immediately pretended to be a naive tourist, constantly striking up conversations and asking all sorts of questions. Her unsolicited behavior aroused his suspicion and made him feel extremely annoyed. He quickly signaled his subordinates to drag Swang to another area. Taking advantage of the chaotic scene, Nabi, with her incredible skills, instantly approached. She swiftly swapped his suitcase and confidently walked away with the real item. The poor foreigner was left with an empty suitcase, completely unaware of what had happened. The Avengers concluded this mission with a resounding and complete victory. However, this cycle of revenge is far from over. Right on the way to the prison, the villain Jun Hyun was suddenly dealt with. The perpetrator of this brutal act is a dark force possessing supreme power, lurking in the shadows. At the same time, the secret headquarters of the Avengers is successfully infiltrated by an unknown intruder. He swiftly destroys the entire team's core data system. A menacing, gunpowder-laden message suddenly appears on the central screen. The content reveals that all evidence of the past fraud committed by the Revenge Squad has been seized upon by a mysterious figure. He demands that the entire team immediately travel to Thailand to search for a secret item. If they do not comply, all this incriminating information will be handed directly to the police. Faced with this desperate situation, Tun's group has absolutely no choice. They had to pack their bags once again to embark on a new journey fraught with danger. This time, the team's goal was to eradicate the mysterious force that held them captive. Thus, the arduous journey of the Revenge Squad under Tun's leadership temporarily came to a close. Nevertheless, the dramatic after-effects of the film will certainly remain deeply imprinted in the minds of the audience. From an exemplary father who always lived and dedicated himself to upholding the scales of justice in society, the character Tun was forced to break all moral standards and step into the underworld. The most profound lesson learned here is that sometimes, compassion is not simply about gentle comfort. Faced with a rotten system where money and power ruthlessly stifle the lives of innocent children, the true heart must be one of fierce resistance. Okay, the movie ends here. Please take 3 seconds to subscribe to our channel to support us. Thank you for watching our channel. See you all in the next movie.